Chicago, Illinois. A young woman breaks into an abandoned house decorated with dead squirrels and graffiti. Oh, and occult symbols. Never a good sign. In a hidden compartment on a wall, there's an old record that seems innocent-looking except for the eerie whispering. The unnamed woman takes the record to a man named Bernie. I'm going to sound a bit pedantic about this, but I have never heard of a record itself being referred to as acetate. It's an EP, an LP, a record, or a vinyl. Acetate is usually just the coating on the record itself. My father's been collecting records his whole life, and I've never heard him use the term either, so I'm not sure why it's used so much here. The woman makes Bernie swear he won't listen to the record, but you know he's going to because there wouldn't be an episode otherwise. Bernie's headphones freeze, and the record spews out demonic grumbling before Bernie shoves a hole into his head, and the record literally freezes. Meanwhile, Zed's tracked John down to his friendly neighborhood lair, and Chaz greets her with a shotgun. Nice of him, huh? He takes her into the house to see his satanic majesty, aka John, who's butt naked and covered in blood. He's supposedly learning a spell. Interesting. Never really seen it done that way before. Chaz takes Zed on a tour of the mill. Is it supposed to be the House of Mystery? Is that why it's bigger on the inside and has endless corridors? I'm also picking up shades of Doctor Who. The Doctor's TARDIS is usually described as bigger on the inside as well. This won't be the last reference to the British sci-fi series in the episode. John shows Zed Liv's Mappo troubles, telling her a friend of his, Bernie, died recently. Zed has a vision about the newspaper articles, smelling jasmine and feeling cold. She insists on coming along on John's investigation. Chaz is left behind to see what he can dig up on Zed, as John's still unsure about her. Not surprised, really, especially since Zed managed to find them again. I guess John gave her the slip after all that minor business. In Chicago, John brings out a bag of tricks, showing Zed some nails that follow each other, and rather than wait for John to pull a magical rabbit out of his bag, Zed steals a pass to the building. In the morgue, John finds Bernie's body and uses a dead man's hand to revive him, and most of the other dead bodies around the place for a precious few moments. John only gets a few words out of Bernie. A voice, acetate, and moonrise. Not really worth losing a few days of your life, if you ask me. Rather than go to the library like John wants, Zed just Googles the clues and easily finds the answer. Moonrise Records, an old company owned by Marcus Mooney, who's still alive. The record has been taken home by the mysterious woman. No idea why, it's obviously bad juju. She puts it in her own record collection and is startled by her daughter, Delilah. The record begins to freeze the shelf in short order. It would probably be a good idea to take the record elsewhere at this point, but that's not going to happen. In the hospital, John and Zed are trying to see Marcus Mooney, and John pulls out a southern accent and a magic playing card that changes into whatever he needs it to be. Yeah, that's a lot like the doctor's psychic paper. Just saying. Marcus is in bad condition, but seems to be in the know about the mysterious record. He recounts a story about Willie Cole, an old blues artist that supposedly sold his soul to the devil, and in the middle of recording something, he died, exploding, nothing left but blood. Marcus hid the record afterwards, hoping no one would find it again. Conveniently, Marcus dies after giving the information, and Manny appears, popping in to collect Marcus's soul, I guess? John tells Zed about Ian Feld, another artist that sold his soul, or so the legend goes. The devil, or rather the first of the fallen, yes, wants to collect souls, sticking it to the Father who cast him out of heaven. John and Zed break into Ian's mansion, and John attacks Ian, ranting at him until Jasmine fell, admits she's the one who sold her soul because Ian was dying. The soul broker was in the hospital the night Ian was diagnosed with cancer. He recently got back in touch, telling Jasmine he would trade her soul for the record. No, I'm not calling it acetate. Sorry. Jasmine's daughter, Delilah, listens to the record while John goes to meet Anton in Jasmine's stead. Funny how Delilah suffers no ill effects listening to the record for a few seconds. But Bernie succumbed almost immediately. John confronts Anton, but finds someone else behind the shady deal. Papa Midnight. He's well cast and has the proper gravitas I'd expect from the character. Midnight is quick to take John down after a few well-placed insults and ties him up on box springs. That's not an overreaction at all. He cuts John, leaving him to bleed out. Too bad he doesn't have a mustache to twist as he laughs evilly. Midnight has sent his minions to collect the cursed record, and once they have it in hand, the pair leave. However, Zed remembers John's very uncharacteristic hug towards Jasmine. Midnight's two thugs get possessed by the record. Jeez, they suck at their job. And John lies helpless, bleeding, a little punch-drunk if his song of choice is any indication. Manny comes in to taunt him, accusing John of wanting to use the record to save his soul, and leaves him. Thanks for nothing, Dick. John almost gets killed by a homeless person until Zed comes to the rescue. That's twice now she's saved John's ass. John meets Chaz at a club where the thugs have played the record, causing mucho death. The team know the possessed men will play the record to a bigger audience, and Zed's vision leads them straight to a college radio station. John goes into the station, Sex Pistols blasting in his ears, while Zed and Chaz try to knock out the station's transmitter. Chad finally crashes his car into it. Drastic, but it does the trick. That's the second car that's been ruined in this series. John's slipshod plan goes awry when his earbuds pop out, and he squirms on the floor as Midnight barges in and plays cowboy, shooting the speakers from the booth out with the ace of Winchester of all things. Midnight desperately wants the record, but John sends it and the two thugs to hell, the only way to really get rid of the cursed thing once and for all. Midnight is less than pleased by this event as he stares into the gaping maw the broadcast booth has become. I wonder how they're going to clean up that mess. Just build over the hole into hell? Easy peasy, right? John returns to Ian's house with Anton the soul broker. Jasmine's near death, her contract almost over. I almost forgot about these characters. Anton is forced to eat his contract, i.e. his own words, at knife point. Nice twist on the phrase. Jasmine is saved and Ian's health will suffer, but he has a better chance of beating the cancer than he would have had a year ago. You keep telling yourself that, pal. John's work is done, but Papa Midnight's is just beginning as he burns an effigy of John. He's not bitter at all, is he? Following last week's much improved episode, a lot of elements from the Hellblazer comic are introduced within a cursed damned item storyline. It feels a bit like an episode of Friday the 13th the series, more than anything else, except the Curious Goods crew never had magical gadgets to help them. That Constantine does is rather intriguing, even if I did get a brief flashback to that scene in Mary Poppins where all manner of impossible things were pulled out of her black bag. For once, Chaz, Zed, and John are on a case together, and while Zed works firmly in the now, John prefers things the old-fashioned way. Watching Zed reach a conclusion before John is fun to watch, and the scene where he purposely stops Chaz from following Zed right away was hilarious. Anything to soothe his pride, I guess. I love the introduction of Papa Midnight. He actually wasn't in Hellblazer that often, but when he was, you knew things were going to get extra dark. Here, he's clearly presented as an antagonist, and even does what a classic villain would. Leaves the hero behind to die. I think he knew John would get out of it because Midnight could have very easily made the situation much worse. He just wanted John out of the way for a while. What impressed me in this episode was the fact that John is presented as fallible. Though he does things on the fly, he screws up and sometimes pays the price for his mistake. If he'd been after the record on his own, John would have definitely died. It was only through the actions of others that he managed to survive. That is definitely staying true to the comics. Perhaps in an effort to utilize Zed more, her visions have been pushed to the forefront, sometimes excessively so. Did we really need to see a white tiger just to draw attention to a flyer not but a few feet away? Is John still blind? Props to the writers for managing to get the First of the Fallen reference in. Do I dare hope to see the devilish character before the season is out? I've got my fingers crossed. The Devil's Final gets a 4 out of 5, a relatively solid episode, and if the preview for next week is any indication, I'm going to be a very happy girl.